if I could talk to somebody about why they should be doing lunch and learns and health fairs and what they need to do, like, it's kind of funny, like, the online courses is this like new school type of marketing. When it comes to booking these lunch and learn and health fairs, like the biggest thing is that it's remarkably old school, but you have to pick up the phone. Like if you want to go and do a lunch and learn, if you want to get invited to a health fair, you can't just email. There's not an online option. At some point, you have to pick up the phone and call these people and just be like, hey, we'd love to be involved in your program.
Hey, welcome back to the Prospecting Show. Today's episode is brought to you by the Wellness Program Expert. Wellness Program Expert is an online course that empowers healthcare providers and business owners to rapidly grow their practices, businesses, and bottom lines through lunch and learn and health fair wellness programs. To learn more and get the free ebook, 7 Steps to Rapidly Grow Your Business and Get Ready for Wellness Program Marketing, head over to wellnessprogramexpert.com. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to the Prospecting Show. Let's hear your background, like kind of like where you started, where you came from, and,
Sure.
and how you got to where you're at right now.
All right. Well, so I started my chiropractic practice back in 2008 and just had rose-colored glasses. I was going to get off to this great start. I tried a bunch of paid advertising, and I joked that the only thing I got out of that was a complex that I might be hideously ugly and hadn't realized it, because I would throw all this money at Facebook and Google Ads and radio and think like, oh man, I'm going to get a bunch of new patients, and nothing would come of it. And so what I ended up with for the first 3 years in practice, I was stuck in this cycle of essentially doing screenings, which I hated. I mean, the low point in my memory was I actually did a screening outside of a Sleep Number store. Probably 2 years into having my own practice. I stood 2 Saturday mornings at the mall outside of the Sleep Number store, and everybody thought I worked for the store. So I'd be like, hey, would you like a quick spine check? And these people would be like, oh, we already bought one, we love it. Or they'd be like, we got one in the RV, we love it so much. And I was just like, I'm going to tell you from an ego perspective, I felt like the Statue of Liberty person standing outside of Liberty Tax. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I spent like 8 years in school and $135,000 to stand in front of a Sleep Number store. This is awful.
Well, and that's like a common story now, right? I've heard, with graduating a few years ago myself and talking to some people who've, gone through 2 or 3 associateships or 2 or 3 other programs with other doctors. Everybody seems to have this mentality that when they come out, it's like, oh, it's going to be the greatest thing ever. I'm going to help a bunch of people. I'm going to, do really great things for the world. And then reality hits, right?
Oh,
for most people. And kind of like to your point, you had that low point where you probably will never forget that actually happened to you. And it's interesting because it kind of changes people, right? That mentality of where you came from and what you're expecting is really not aligning with what's actually happening. So after that happened to you, where did you go after that?
Well, about 3 years into owning my own practice, I decided I was going to start doing lunch and learns. And so I got out there and did my first one, and people laughed. I had patients schedule. One of the patients from the very first lunch and learn that I ever did still comes in, and I've run the numbers, and his care alone is up. My case averages are pretty low, actually, in general through my career, but he's up at $4,500. And so I spent, a couple $100s on a meal, and that first patient, has 20x that number over a period of years. So anyways, there was this trial and error period of trying to figure out how to do lunch and learn successfully. That first year, we did our first lunch and learn in October. We did 3 lunch and learns. The second year, we did 16. But by the next year, we had a system just running where we knew exactly what we needed to say to get into these businesses. And we actually did 50 lunch and learns and health fairs that third year. The fourth year, we did 38. And that third year, my income shot up $100,000. I mean, we just finally had enough patients where I could stop doing screenings. Staff retention went up. I got 100% out of debt. So it was fantastic. Flash forward to, let's see here, probably late 2017, and I found this podcast called the Online Course Show. And these 2 guys were on there just telling their stories about creating online courses. And after listening for a while, I became inspired that, I did have this one thing that I had figured out how to do really well. And that's how to pick up the phone, go out and get booked for lunch and learns and actually give a persuasive talk. And so I created a course on how chiropractors can book lunch and learns and health fairs. Eventually, right now it's just for chiropractors, but I'm going to be expanding it out to all the professions pretty soon here. And it's been off to a great start. I have people enrolled around the United States. I have a couple over in Australia, one guy up in Canada. So it's off to a great start, and people are having success getting out there and booking these lunch and learns, getting into health fairs. And then the interesting thing is that I've now also actually become the co-host of that podcast on the online courses. So yeah, that's my story.
Well, we've come this far, so let's hear it about the podcast itself. So what's the name of the podcast, and then how can people find both the podcast and kind of the course that you're putting out?
Okay, yeah. So the podcast is called the Online Course Show. And the original founder is named Jacques Hopkins. And I'll tell the story. The two guys that were on there at the beginning, when I listened to this, I was just laughing out loud. These guys are really inspiring, and I would encourage anybody just to go back to the start of this. But this Jacques Hopkins was an engineer, but his hobby was playing piano. And he had learned to play piano kind of the way that like dueling pianos do, in the sense that they know the chords. They don't know every single note, but they know the chords, and they can read they're called guitar tabs. And they just play, so they can play thousands of songs that way. He created a course called Piano in 21 Days. And at the start of the podcast, he was doing $30,000 a month in teaching people piano around the world. And so then at the start of the show, the first 20 episodes are him mentoring this other guy named Nate Dodson. And so Nate Dodson was he's kind of this laid back hippie guy, but also very motivated. But he was an urban farmer over in Indiana. And as he was getting his urban farm started, he had found that his most predictable and most successful crop was what are called microgreens, which are basically, if you think of a sprout, if you buy those in the store, it's still going to have the roots. A microgreen is a sprout where it's cut off above the roots. But this Nate Dodson had created a course on how to grow and sell microgreens, really teaching people the business strategies. So at the first 20 episodes, the piano guy is coaching the microgreens guy. What was kind of funny, I had my wife listen to the show, and 2 days later, she was like, I was like, are we going to hang out tomorrow night? And she said, actually, I'm watching a webinar. She ended up watching the show about the microgreens. And next thing I know, she is now a microgreens farmer and has her own microgreens business.
Wow.
The piano guy has a course on how to make online courses. And so eventually I bought that for $700. He now actually offers it essentially for free. But I just followed his formula, and it worked great.
And was that, in your mind, taking that plunge from just purely clinical work into the online coursework, where do you think that the stumbling points are for most clinicians? If they wanted to go out there and kind of create a course on what they do, or kind of create another business or another income stream, where are the challenging parts in that transition?
Well, I would say the first thing is just the belief that you can do it. The second thing is the actual technology. But I mean, we just live in this, it's the golden age of entrepreneurship, in the sense that there are 100 different places that you can host your course, for free or for virtually free. You got access where you can target the people that are interested in what you want to sell. And so, I would just encourage people, go listen to the podcast. I think my first episode that I was featured on is episode 106. But just go back to the beginning, and the story of these two guys, the piano guy and the microgreen, is hilarious. It's inspiring. It obviously motivated me. I mean, so I would say, who should consider making an online course? I mean, if you actually can teach people within your field something new, that's one way to do it. But also, I mean, let's say you're a chiropractor and you want to be considered the authority in your community, in the same way that historically people would say if you want to be viewed as an expert, write a book. It's everybody out there has the ability to make an online course in their pocket, right? I mean, an iPhone 10, really an iPhone 6 could make an online course. It's everything you need. And so, there's no excuses. If you want to make an online course that just goes out to your community and just establishes you as an expert, there's really no barrier to it.
Well, and that's kind of the the point that you were making before, I guess, about the golden age is like, now that there's so much opportunity with IT just in general, there's really no excuse and barriers for anybody to do anything, right? Like you could literally have a phone and a laptop and an internet connection and basically build a business from scratch, right? And a lot of people, I still think, kind of fall back to like, oh, it's too difficult, takes a lot of money, takes a lot of time. And really the only currency you have to trade right now is time, right? That you don't need a lot of money to start an online course. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, it's pretty easy,
free.
right? You just jump right into it. And kind of to your point, if you want to have that authority type process for them, it's really, not that difficult, because you build the course, you cast out to the people who are in the market, and you create value beyond the cost of the actual product. And typically they will buy that, right?
Exactly. And I mean, we have all these ways just to ask people, like, what are you struggling with? And then you just you solve their struggles. So it's incredible just how much information you can get and then let's say that your first version of the course doesn't answer like their top concern, record another video, and all of a sudden your course is a step more complete to exactly what these people need.
And when someone's starting out to build a course, do you typically recommend that they build a certain amount of content before they release it, or do they dynamically add to this course as time goes on?
Well, that's a big thing. Like, a lot of the course experts would say, before you invest a bunch of money and a bunch of time in this, you would want to create a Facebook group where it's focused on a specific topic. So I don't know, just as an abstract example, let's say care of hamsters. So you create this Facebook group around hamster care, and everybody that joins the group, you ask them what's the top thing that you have questions about. And so then within that group, once you got 100 or maybe even less people, you just say, okay, I'm going to teach a live session. You could do it for free, but do it live the first time with that group and get their feedback, and or have them pay just a small amount to be a part of that beta version of the course. Now, personally, I had no experience making videos. I was actually still somewhat shy. And so I made the majority of the course before I did any kind of marketing like that. And the idea of pre-selling a course, it just was outside my comfort level, quite frankly.
Yeah, and I think a lot of guys like Dan Henry and things like that are, really the ultimate course creator guys. They talk about doing exactly what you're saying you weren't comfortable with, which is really doing that pre-sell, no-sell model, right? Where it's you have an idea, but you don't have a course, but you sell it to prove that people want the course, and then you launch it in 3 months or something like that with pre-sell money, right, that you've created.
Exactly.
And that's a bit of a punt, right? It's really you're punting that up in the air, and you're hoping that by the time the ball comes back down, you're going to catch it on the other side, right? Mm-hmm. And that's just a dangerous place to live for a lot of people who are starting up, because the fastest way to kill entrepreneurship is to do something that not only fails. I mean, failure is not really a big thing, but, failing in a way that pisses a lot of people off, right?
Sure.
Because those people are going to look at you and go, oh, I'm not trusting this guy again because he's, done X, Y, Z, and he's not really reliable, especially the very first thing that's done. You know what I mean? There's just no way. You
Exactly.
have to have something useful, which is probably why your approach is better, in my opinion, that you maybe don't have the whole thing complete, but what you do have is an idea of what needs to be done in the steps that need to be done to get there. So you build it out, you do a little bit of it, you test it, you sell it, and then you kind of build onto the course and keep tacking these extra pieces on as time goes on.
Sure. Well, and it also just depends. If you already have an audience and you're already comfortable making quality videos, then yeah, I would say that's where you do the pre-sell the course, and it's going to come out fine. For me, making the course was a learning experience. I learned about how to make quality videos, how to capture good sound. And so the making of the course made it so that then when I make promotional videos now, they actually look nice. And so some of the worst looking videos are buried within the course, but the content's there. But now when I make a promotional video, at least I have the quality down.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point to talk about the quality, and I think there's also the quantity aspect of it too, right? I don't know how many other guys you follow online that are in the marketing space, but there's Frank Kern. Have you heard of him before?
I haven't.
Okay, so he works with Grant Cardone and a few of those guys over there, and he's a master guru online marketer guy, and he has absolutely no digital kind of like quality graphics. He'll put up a post that's like literally a blue background with one website URL. And he's like, if you want to buy more stuff or get people to buy your stuff, visit this link. And he'll get, 150,000 people to go fill out that form. And it's literally nothing, right? It's basically one page with one link. And it's really interesting because he talks a lot about intent-based branding, which is if you create enough value and you go after the people who are going to buy between the next, 3 and 9 months, you'll have a lot better chance because there's only a small portion of people who are ready to buy today. Mm-hmm. And that's true of chiropractic as well, right? There's a lot of people who wait until they absolutely think they need chiropractic. They fell down, they blew a disc, they did whatever it is, and they wait until that exact time to go get care, as opposed to trying to take a more preventative approach. But then once those people understand the value of it, they'll kind of come back around. And the reason I say that that's kind of a synergy on both sides is because if you're able to teach people that learning up front and creating up front is the way to go, I think there'd be one, a lot better course quality that's out there, and two, there's a lot of industry experts that could share their knowledge.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So in your mind, when you create these courses, do you have a specific length or a specific kind of focus that you spend your time around?
I would say not really. I mean, it's all about the transformation. It's how quickly can I take somebody that has no experience doing lunch and learns and health fairs and get them where they're proficient, they're confident to pick up the phone, book the event. So my course is like deep, but then within it, it has like a 30-day action plan with everything that like the actual business owner does. And then also if there's going to be a different person like picking up the phone and actually making these outreach type calls, it's like they have their action steps for the week. They have a weekly meeting. And then at the end of 30 days, it's like they're just up and running. So it's my course is broad, but then it has a very specific action plan.
And is your course, like, how long is it? Is it something that's 5 weeks, 6 weeks? I don't know if you answered that before, but like how long is the actual content of the course?
I mean, once a person is enrolled, they get access to all the content, but the encouragement would be just to print out this like 1-page action plan. And just that's like the bare minimum of what they need to do to be, the course is called Wellness Program Expert. So it's just 30 days from no lunch and learn and health fair marketing to being a wellness program expert. And then they can always up level from there. They can add in different variations of like sending a massage therapist out. They can add more talks, and I teach them how to like create their own persuasive talks. But the whole goal is just like, let's simplify this and get you out there doing these things that have success and that are quite frankly fun to do and effective.
And for the people that are like thinking about doing a course, right? So you have a course, if I understand this correctly, you have a course that's about how to create a course. Is that correct?
No, Jacques Hopkins, the piano guy I mentioned, he has piano in 21 days, which is how to learn to play piano in 21 days. But then he has, it's called the Online Course Accelerator. And essentially, if you go to the onlinecourseguy.com and click on the courses or like, how can I help you? The way that he has that set up is that you would basically pay for shipping for a copy of Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. Okay. And then he would give you access to the same course, well, a newer version of the course that I paid $700 for. So for $7, you get access to this course it's like everything you need to know. So
gotcha. So and that will pretty much take someone through the process of coming up with an idea, formulating the idea, selling the course, making the course, and all the pieces around it.
Everything. Yep, exactly. And then mine is if you're a chiropractor currently, in the future, acupuncturist, therapist, lawyer, real estate agent, it's like, okay, I've never gone out and given a talk in public. What do I need to do to go out and provide value in a local business near me?
And are these kind of group talk environments where you go into a local business and you talk to 10, 15 people at a time, or is this more of a one-to-one kind of program?
No. The Lunch and Learns is going out, groups anywhere from like 5 to like 60 people, and essentially either providing a lunch, or you can do a brown bag lunch and just bring like some high-end cupcakes. And yeah, I mean, giving talks anywhere between, it could be as short as like a 10-minute talk up to like the main ones that I give, we're up at like 35 or 40 minutes. And just, people watching feel like they're watching a stand-up comic. They have a blast. They come up afterwards. They're like, that was amazing. And then obviously we want to be persuasive in the sense of getting these people in the mindset of like, yeah, let's find out what's going on inside my body.
And so this is the opportunity for them to learn, in your case, about chiropractic and how that could help. And so ideally you're doing the talk to both educate them on why they need to be involved with that, but then also there's some conversion opportunity, right? The whole goal is to get them to get involved with your practice.
Exactly. Yep.
Gotcha.
And it's super effective. It's old school. If I could talk to somebody about why they should be doing lunch and learns and health fairs and what they need to do, like, it's kind of funny, like, the online courses is this like new school type of marketing. When it comes to booking these lunch and learn and health fairs, like the biggest thing is that it's remarkably old school, but you have to pick up the phone. Like if you want to go and do a lunch and learn, if you want to get invited to a health fair, you can't just email. There's not an online option. At some point, you have to pick up the phone and call these people and just be like, hey, we'd love to be involved in your program. And there's some other things that need to be there where they are like, wow, this sounds like a great idea. But yeah, so we go and give a talk. There's a few key things in our talks that just make it a blast. So the story behind that, actually for the majority of my career, the talk that I was giving required a lot of memorization, and occasionally people would actually fall asleep. When I was going to create the course, I was like, I have to up level this. Like I want anybody that joins my course to not have to memorize it. And then I just want it to be like super fun and engaging. And it kind of, right as I'm like having this thought, we actually were booked to do a lunch and learn for a Montessori school. So are you familiar with Montessori schools?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's super experiential type of learning, right? I mean, they're not going to be just like lecturing at the chalkboard. Like the kids are going to be like counting sticks out in the schoolyard and stuff. And that's how they learn math. And so I'm like, all right, I got to like make my talk just as just like experiential as possible. I don't want it to be a talk. I want it to be an experience. And so, I mean, the key things that we'll do, number one, it needs to have tons of like questions. So at the start of the talk, I'm telling people like, I'm going to ask questions. I need you guys just to yell out answers. Let's make it super fun. The second thing is stories. Anytime you start telling a story, people's ears perk up. Tell personal stories, other stories, and then also just fun analogies. So just really making people like get the idea in a way that just resonates with them. So if you'd like, I'll go ahead and tell a quick part of my presentation that highlights those three parts.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd definitely like to hear that.
All right. So, let's imagine for a second that we're here in Connor's office. And so we're in the kitchen. And so Connor likes a big burrito for lunch. So he's microwaving this big burrito. And then Sue from the front desk, she's over there. She likes to make this giant green smoothie for lunch. So she's got the blender running. And then Joe, the PT assistant, he likes to make these really stinky tuna fish sandwiches with like hard-boiled eggs on them. Stinks up the entire office, but he likes them on toast. And so he's over at the toaster, pushes the button down on the toaster, and all of a sudden, all three of these things just stop working. What are you going to do? What would you do, Connor?
Probably it's power. It sounds like, yeah.
Yeah, you'd go check the fuse, right?
Yeah.
All right. So why wouldn't you run down to Walmart or Target and get some new appliances?
Because they're not the issue.
They're not the problem. So that's exactly right. So the reason you're able to say that is you have a basic understanding of the wiring of your office. Your body has a wiring system as well. It's the nerves. Your brain is up at the top trying to control everything, and if it can't get clear messages through the nerves, which are carrying electrical signals, then it doesn't work. And so then I'd have a map of the wiring, the nerve system of the body, and I just go on from there. I'd say like, so look at this map here. You guys all have this sitting out in front of you. Let's say somebody has right shoulder pain, left elbow pain, and right hand pain. What's the fuse that controls that region? And they look at it, they say, oh, it's the lower neck. And I'm like, exactly. So yeah, so that's questions, stories, fun analogies. The other thing that's super fun, we do tons of demonstrations. So, we do a little part where I talk about how pain doesn't work like you think it would. So, it seems like little problems should have a little pain. Major problems should have major pain. But you stop and think like a heart attack and cancer, they don't have any pain until they're like crisis level. And then I would say little problems can cause major pain. And I'd have one of the managers come up front have them take off a shoe, and I would say, I'm going to have you stand on something. It's not going to draw blood, do any permanent damage. And then I pull out of my pocket like a Lego. And so just putting, people just crack up. If you think about a stand-up comic, if they ever start to like talk to somebody in the audience, like everybody starts paying attention. So
right. You kind of captivate them, right? That's the part that I think a lot of people miss, at least in chiropractic and other healthcare small businesses, is they're really good at what they do from a technical standpoint in their job, but they're not very good at explaining what they do, right?
Exactly.
They can't convey that message. And what you're talking about is an easy way to kind of bridge that gap between, patients and providers, especially in a small business environment where you have a chiropractic office, you maybe have 3 or 4 staff members, maybe you have a huge practice and you got lots of staff members, but the bottom line is it's not a mega enterprise. So every single person along the pathway really needs to be involved with understanding what chiropractic is, what the services that they're offering, and just kind of go from there.
Exactly. Yeah. The last thing, we're just looking to just do surprises for people and have tons of laughter. So picture you're up front, you're teaching people just a few stretches for them to take away. And you have one where they have their arms up by their ear. They're just doing like a standing back bend with the arms up at their ears. And you have your assistant in the back and she starts playing YMCA and you just have a spontaneous dance party in like the middle of a talk. It's like,
yeah. Gotcha.
People are just laughing out loud.
Yeah, they're engaged, right? That's the part, because everyone's so used to having these educational talks where it's like stand up front with the chalkboard, like you said, or the whiteboard, I guess now, and going through the process. This is what happens. This is how you can fix it. This, all the different pieces that everyone gets bored of. But if you have that more interactive approach, either in an online course or in a in-person kind of, it really is like a course, right? You're doing a presentation and you're educating people. If you have that kind of tonality and that energy and excitement around what you're doing, people are probably going to remember that. And there's also an affinity for people to go towards those individuals that have a great, kind of state, right? A great kind of personality. And so to kind of, wrap this all back together with your course, how could people find it? And then, what recommendations do you have for people who are considering getting something like your course? What should they be considering ahead of time before they dive in?
Essentially to find it, you could go to wellnessprogramexpert.com. Originally, I did brand the course as 20 calls per week, chiropractic marketing, which I had a nice little logo and stuff. But the reality is that's kind of like the least fun part of this program. Again, in my program, I teach you how to go out and just do talks, attend health fairs, and actually have a blast doing it. Picking up the phone isn't fun, but it's also not as bad as you might think. But essentially what they would need to consider is just, if you have all the strategies as far as how to pick up the phone and go out and deliver a talk, like, are you going to do it? Obviously I don't want somebody to join my course and just not take action. But other than that, I feel like I can take somebody, even somebody that's like it just has zero confidence in public speaking. Like everything is set up in a way that makes that person comfortable and confident. Interestingly, like I actually had true panic attacks about public speaking back when I was like 21 and 22. I actually had to go to Toastmasters during chiropractic school. So if I can do it, anybody can.
Yeah, and I think the key for people is when the fear of doing these public speaking events or just disengagement with the public becomes less than your fear of not growing your business, you'll eventually do it, right? Because pain's kind of going to guide you in that direction where you're going to say, listen, I really don't like public speaking, but I really want to get the message of chiropractic out there, or acupuncture, or, whatever it is your professional services. When you decide that you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you'll probably change it.
Exactly. And you highlighted another thing. That whole start with why. The people with the most success with this truly do believe that the people sitting in the audience are going to end up with unnecessary surgeries. They're going to end up, what is it? The average person over 65 is on 14 medicines. So, when you're standing up there, you do want to be in that mindset. I'm here as a hero. I'm here to save these people from unnecessary medicines and just a life where they don't get to be out and be active.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I know it's been a pretty short segment, but we hit a lot of heavy points here. I appreciate your time and all of the value you've provided on creating a course.
Yeah, thanks, Connor. I appreciate the opportunity.
Have an awesome day.
You too.